Hello viewers, my name is Chase Clover, and this is my review on the July 30th, 2014 edition of USW Wednesday Night Intensity, and this Sunday is USW Outcast 2014. The show was okay. They could have showed it off better, but there were some matches that didn't really make sense. And there were 6 matches on the card. I believe half of them were like a rematch of one of the matches we saw last night, and then the other 3 were really just matches to put on the card. And so this review may not be as long, or it may, I don't know, but this show didn't really do well, and it may have brought Outcast lower on the rating, on what could be the ratings. But anyway, let's just get into it. So we start the night off with Derek Carter making fun of the fans during a celebration for winning the USW Championship at Ultimate Consequence. And then Enigma comes out and attacks him. Whoops. Okay, there we go. So afterwards, Enigma attacks him, and then Kyle Reese comes out and announces that where I left off was Kyle Reese came out and pretty much said that considering Zach Hardy or Enigma still had his rematch clause in his contract, he was able to face Derek Carter for the championship again. So Derek Carter, at the top of the stage after a brawl with Enigma, was, as Kyle Reese was talking, was saying things like, this is not fair, I shouldn't have to defend against this whack job, and things like that. And since Enigma does have a rematch, in his contract, he is allowed to face Derek Carter, so it's made official. Enigma will face Derek Carter for the USW title this Sunday, which is not surprising. That's something that should have been expected by most people, because everyone knows once you lose the title, you are entitled to a rematch, as long as that can be abided by the organization or company that you work for. So Enigma gets the rematch this Sunday, and then you don't see them in a match. They have the night off. But apparently ahead of time they both after the match had an interview, but the interview was seen afterwards, or after 2 other matches ahead of that promo. But besides the interview and this brawl, they weren't used at all, tonight, which I feel was poor writing. As well as Capital not being at the show tonight was also poor writing, and having a new number 1 contender crowned, even though Lone Wolf should really have another fair chance. But I'll get to that in a little while. But Derek Carter and Enigma, I feel like this could be a good rivalry, but they need to use them more. They need to hype this up more, and one of the big things that they need to do if they're going to make this a good rivalry is try to see what gets the fans interested in this rivalry. Because you're not just going to say, be interested in this, and they'll be interested in it. You have to give them reasons to be interested into this rivalry. And you can turn this into a rivalry. This doesn't have to just be a short feud. But anyway, I feel like it was poor writing by the creative team that neither Derek Carter or Enigma or Capital were even at the show. Capital didn't even get an interview. Marcia Guetta and Weston Light were given the night off. Cannon was at the show. Dwayne Porter was at the show. Dustin Raymond was not. And there were a lot of talents that were not at the show that probably will have a match this Sunday at Outcast. But yeah. Enigma and Derek Carter don't apply as much as Marcia Guetta and Weston Light, because even though Marcia Guetta and Weston Light were there tonight, they did not appear on the show. Enigma and Derek Carter at least had a promo and interviews, so either way, poor booking by USW, not bringing many performers to Intensity tonight and giving them their night off. Not saying that they don't deserve it, because they do deserve it. They work hard, but it's just poor booking. And I think if they want a day off, either have it be after a while, or have it be them taking it out of their vacation days, because I know the contracts have about 20 to 30 vacation days, and I know Legends contracts have about 30 or 40, so either way, poor booking. Afterwards, you had Ultimate Consequence highlights, not bad. Then you had the first match, and it was BP Fierce beating Anarchy, and he beat him with a roll-up pin for some reason. That was the end of it. And since Anarchy is not a heel character, he didn't attack him afterwards, which makes sense. And then Ash comes out and challenges Anarchy to a Blue Belt Championship match. Anarchy's saying, well, why not, why should I give you a title shot? Why not give someone else who's actually a contender and who can actually beat me, get a championship shot, which I felt was a diss to Ash. And then he, I guess, kind of let something slip when he said, give me a championship match, because I can prove to you that I actually do deserve it. And, not saying that's bad, but here's the problem with that. He said, I'll prove to you that I deserve it. And, a performer doesn't really have to prove anything to a performer, unless it's a newbie versus a real veteran. Then you have to prove, I belong here, and I should stay here, I should be here. That's the kind of thing that, happens sometimes. It's just a mix-up sometimes, and you can't change that. But anyway, Anarchy accepted, so it's Ash vs. Anarchy for the Blue Belt Championship. Glad to see that Ash is no longer injured and that he's healed again, so that's always a good sign. And then we had an interview with Enigma that was previously taped. And then I believe Enigma, Derek Carter, Majigeta, Weston Light, and Yo-Yo Joe, or no, not Yo-Yo Joe, someone else, all left before the show was over. They carpooled and, they went back home because there was no point in just standing backstage, especially when you're top performers and you're not competing. Then your time off is, should be given. Afterwards, we had a second match, and it was Cannon beating Benny Franklin, kind of out of revenge from, Ultimate Consequence, as well as BP Fierce beating Anarchy. Those are both two matches that were kind of incorporated to Ultimate Consequence. Cannon faced Benny Franklin and Ezra Kills in a 2-on-1 handicap match, although tonight he faced Benny Franklin and beat Benny Franklin. Glad to see that he's not injured as well. He could have suffered a concussion, or could have just been passed out and really been hurt from the lack of blood and oxygen getting to the brain. But he was able to beat him, and then after Prophecy came out, Ezra Kills came out with Benny Franklin, who was walking up the ramp, looking at Cannon Prophecy, and they challenged them to a unified USW Tag Team Championship match at Outcast, which is something that I expected, being as they just fought Cannon out of the blue last night, or not last night, out of the blue, or both of them fought Cannon out of the blue at the pay-per-view. It was kind of shown that, considering Cannon was in a tag team and he was the tag team champion, and he was facing another tag team that, that's what happens with professional wrestling a lot. The scripts end up going out with, pretty obvious measures. So, just like it was obvious that Enigma would face Derek Carter for the title, it was obvious that Ash would get another championship match against Anarchy, and it was, obvious that Benny Franklin and Ezra Kills would get a tag title match. But anyway, afterwards was an interview with Derek Carter, and both Enigma and Derek Carter kind of went on a shoot against each other, talking about how they were going to win the USW title, and that they were the better of the two, and I guess we will find out at the pay-per-view. For once, Zach Hardy or Enigma was not one of the big two. He was not better than Derek Carter at the pay-per-view, but maybe he can bounce back and be able to beat him and once again be crowned USW champion, because it's kind of been obvious that Enigma would end up getting the title back, because he's Enigma. he's the best performer on your roster, so having him be the champion is just obvious. So I think they're going to give him title matches after title matches just in case, or, just until he wins the title back. Which would be, crazy if someone would hold the USW title for a long period of time. Because, Enigma is still around. So if it's anybody but Enigma or Zach Hardy, then I'd be surprised if Enigma were the USW champion. Or I wouldn't be surprised if Enigma won the USW title at Outcast. So, anyway. Third match was Dwayne Porter beating Blade. And then afterwards, backstage, Dustin Raymond attacked Switchblade. And so Dustin Raymond ended up knocking Switchblade out. And surprisingly enough, they didn't do anything with that. They had Dustin Raymond attack Switchblade, and that's it. Did Dwayne Porter find Switchblade? Did Blade find Dustin Raymond? Did these guys brawl? Because Dustin Raymond attacked Switchblade, so you would assume that Dwayne Porter would come backstage and attack Dustin Raymond. But after Dwayne Porter beat Blade, you saw Dustin Raymond attack Switchblade, and you saw the medical team running towards Switchblade. So, but that was scripted, that attack thing. But Switchblade, what happens to Dwayne Porter? Does he find Switchblade? You never know, because nothing happens during the night. So poor effort in this, and poor thought of the way they were going to handle the rivalry. And I still feel like Switchblade vs. Blade would be a better singles match, and Dwayne Porter versus Dustin Raymond would be awesome as well. I guess when Switchblade fought Blade in the singles matches, they didn't think it was very good, and they weren't the best, but they still handled it pretty well. But I can't speak for them on that. The fourth match on the card was Fernandez with Gringo beating Crimson Red, so number one contender, I would think, for the International Championship, beat the Extreme Champion, or the former Extreme Champion, the number one contender for the Extreme Championship. And then after Crimson Red got out of the ring, he was attacked by MC4, and since Marshall and Western Light weren't out there in the building to go and defend Crimson Red by attacking Fernandez and Gringo just stood there and watched MC4 beat down on Crimson Red and then hold the Extreme title above his head. And then afterwards, they clapped behind him. So, since you don't really know what's going to happen, it may be for the first time ever a 6-man tag team match at a pay-per-view for USW. So you may see Fernandez, Gringo, and MC4 battle Crimson Red, Majigeta, and Western Light. I wouldn't really have a big problem with that, as long as it was only one time. Because Crimson Red still needs his rematch for the Extreme title, and I still think that Fernandez and Majigeta have a lot of talent and a lot of chemistry working against each other. And I feel like Gringo and Western Light could also have a good rivalry, and I think they're only going to be used as managers and not much else. Maybe a few matches here and there, but that's what I think they're going to do, or that USW is going to do, which is a poor booking of Western Light, because Western Light's one of your biggest guys. He's one of the only 5 people on your Legends contract, so, treat him better. After that, was the 5th match, it was an interview with, who was it with? Capital, that's what. I forgot to mention, Capital was actually on the show. He didn't fight, that's what I meant to say. And so he did have an interview, and he talked about the 10-man battle royal for the number one contendership for the USW World Heavyweight Championship. That was the main event for the night. And he said he would not be at ringside, which was true. But he was going to be watching closely. Capital was one of the only... His interview was also taped ahead of time. I believe, now that I remember, it was Majigeta, Western Light, Enigma, Derek Carter, and Capital, who left early. Anyway, afterwards was the 5th match on the card. Yo-Yo Joe beat Alex in a rematch from Ultimate Consequence. I believe this was the only match that was interpreted in the pay-per-view this past Sunday, that was actually won by the same performer that won at the pay-per-view, because Yo-Yo Joe beat Alex at the pay-per-view. Afterwards, George Martin attacked Yo-Yo Joe and then got attacked by Alex. And that's surprising to me because I don't know why George Martin decided to attack Yo-Yo Joe and not Alex. I think that once again, on the creative team's part, USW's creative team's part, they thought ahead very poorly and didn't really think before they made this scenario. So I don't know why George Martin would attack Yo-Yo Joe first, unless they wanted Yo-Yo Joe interpreted in this rivalry between Alex and George Martin that may be renewed for a third time. But in that case, they're trying to give something for Yo-Yo Joe to do, which I think is bad, because you have Yo-Yo Joe, who can be used for a lot more. Once again, one of the only 5 performers on the Legends contract. You can find something for him pretty easily. You found something for him against Zach Hardy. May not have worked out for him. That's why they stopped giving him championship matches. Either that, or they just wanted Derek Carter to have something for him, going for him. But you had him against Zach Hardy. You've had him against Western Light. You've had him against Marjagetta, against Cannon before, and you've had him face some of the greats in professional wrestling around New England that are known even throughout the world. This is global. Well, mostly global. USW is mostly global, but the places that they're most known for are places in New England and neighboring states of New England. So possibly one of the best performers in New England at the moment. But anyway, then George Martin gets attacked by Alex, who comes to the rescue of Yo-Yo Joe, and they brawl out at ringside. Alex goes berserk on him, and George Martin ends up retreating as Yo-Yo Joe is at a second ringside area. Alex is in the front where the stage is located, and Yo-Yo Joe's to the side. They look at each other and they nod heads like you're welcome for saving your ass, or something like that. And you could tell that that's what they were going for, because that's something that happens most of the time when you're like, hey, I just saved your ass, you're welcome. Anyways, afterwards was an interview with Marjagetta, who also had an interview taped beforehand. I think they're starting to tape interviews ahead of time. And Marjagetta was talking about how Fernandez was going to get his rematch, or may be able to get his rematch, but only time will tell. So it's still a possibility that Marjagetta, Western Light, and Crimson Red will face Fernandez, Gringo, and MC4 this Sunday, and it's still a possibility. And I won't have a problem with it if it's for a one-time deal only, and it's not like a Switchblade and Blade, or Switchblade and Blade and Dwayne Porter and Dustin Raymond feud. But if it were just a one-time thing, and Crimson Red still got his title match, and Fernandez and Gringo still got their rivalry with Western Light and Marjagetta, then I feel like there's no problem with that. Especially because now it's only 1 week away, so you obviously have to have a USW title match and a USW World Heavyweight title match at the pay-per-view, at any pay-per-view. Maybe a blue belt title match, and sometimes an Extreme title and tag title match. But the Extreme title and the tag titles don't really matter as much, and neither do the international title yet. So with this match, you're more than likely going to see this match be a preview for these performers' matches at Capital Carnage. That's going to be at the end of, I believe, August, because this pay-per-view is going to be August 3rd, I believe, or August 2nd, something like that. But anyway, yeah, that's all. Then we have the sixth match, the main event, the 10-man Battle Royal USW World Heavyweight Championship #1 contenders match. That's a mouthful of words. Lone Wolf versus Chris Ross versus James versus Chain Reaction versus Brandon Stickler versus Titanfall versus Philip Akron versus Rain versus Seth versus TJ. I believe well, I think I may know the order of the eliminations. I know Lone Wolf got, I believe, 3 or 4 eliminations. He eliminated James. I believe he eliminated Brandon Stickler. Or no, I believe he eliminated James, Rain, I believe Titanfall, and I think TJ as well. I'm not too sure, but I know that he had like 3 or 4 eliminations. Although Lone Wolf did not win the match, so he's not getting a world title match this Sunday. The winner was Seth, someone who we have not seen since January. I believe January. Either that or I believe the 20-man gauntlet match. So now you have a number 1 contender for the world title going to a person who you haven't seen in over 5 months. So almost half a year. I don't know why, but I think that they put him, along with TJ, Rain, Philip Akron, Titanfall, and I believe that's it, in there because, oh no, I believe it was him, TJ, Rain, and Titanfall, and maybe Brandon Stickler, that were in there because they have been developing, they have had some talent off camera. Those 3 men have been performing in a developmental gym area, and that's what, they get development, and they use for things like this, battle royals or whatever. TJ and Wilbur are a tag team, and Wilbur is currently injured. He's close to getting healed, but right now TJ is on his own for the few matches that he'll have. Rain we haven't seen for a while as well, I believe, since the 20-man gauntlet match as well. But beforehand you had Rain as like the fan favorite, high flying guy, and now you don't have him on intensity at all. Besides this match, Titanfall is a good performer that I've wanted to be put into this picture or into an undercard at least, or a mid-card match pay-per-view position, because he does have talent. He is a fierce competitor, yet they are not giving him the things he needs to be a performer. Philip Akron is a tall guy, powerful. I believe he was contender for numerous titles, and I believe he would have a triple crown or a Grand Slam by now. But Philip Akron is a good performer. Brandon Stickler was in there, I believe, because he was the very first USW World Heavyweight Champion, and he hasn't held a title since, or a title since. Chain Reaction, because I think because he is a good performer, and USW knows that, but he doesn't have anything going for him, so if he won this match now, then, he would, be able to contend for the world title. He's already held the world title once. He's held the blue belt title before. I believe that's it. By the way, James held the blue belt title before. He's developing rapidly. And since losing the blue belt title, he's been out of the picture. And so I'm, waiting to see what they do with James. He is a good performer. He's very talented, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of him. But I think that's why they put him in there. Chris Ross, because he's held the USW World title on the most occasions. He's held it 4 times, which is the record for one performer holding it, the most amount of times. Lone Wolf, because he did hold up a fight last night. And Seth, because he is developing, and he is very talented. I've seen talent from him. I used to work for USW as one of their production teams. I still work as USW for their production team, and I signed with them in about January, I believe. And so I'm still on my contract until January. And for those of you who are watching my reviews, I have no clue what the creative team does. I have no clue what they are planning. I have no clue of anything that you see on Intensity, any rivalries, any of those things. So, letting you know, Chase Clover does his reviews fairly. He doesn't know anything about what's going to happen in the future. So, don't take my word right away. But Seth, I've seen him develop backstage and off camera, and he is a good performer. He's got a lot of talent, and I think he is ready for a push, but I don't think it's ready for a world title push, if you know what I mean. More like a blue belt title push, or even a tag team title push. But Seth won, and so he's going to get a shot at the world title. If he won, that would be a surprise, because Lone Wolf didn't knock off Capital, Masha Geta didn't knock off Capital, Alex didn't knock off Capital, so if Seth, who is more like the blue belt title picture, wins the world title, then you know that Seth's got talent. So, don't make that into a t-shirt. But I believe, let's see, I think it was Titanfall that was first eliminated, and then I believe it was Brandon Stickler, and then TJ, and then James, and then I believe Chain Reaction, or then Chain Reaction, then Philip Akron, then Chris Ross, and then Seth versus Lone Wolf. Seth was able to eliminate Lone Wolf after he tried to get back in the ring, but kicked him off, and then ran into the turnbuckle, and then Lone Wolf got eliminated. So Seth is your number one contender for the world title. I didn't predict this at all. I mean, within maybe 2 or 3 months, I would have predicted Seth to be in the blue belt title picture if he would show up, but I didn't think he would be in the world title picture. But if he beats Capital this Sunday, then he's got some talent. And I'll talk more about that in my Outcast preview and prediction video coming out in sometime this week. But anyway, guys, Seth won the main event. He's a one contender. So anyway, guys, that was my review. Let me go down the line. BP Fierce beat Anarchy, Cannon beat Benny Franklin, Dwayne Porter beat Blade, Fernandez beat Crimson Red, Yo-Yo Joe beat Alex, and Seth won the number one contenders battle royal for the world title. Anyway, guys, that was my review for the July 30th, 2014 edition of USW Wednesday Night Intensity. Remember to watch Outcast this Sunday. It's not $59.99, it's $29.99. And I believe in euros it's like $39.99 or something like that. Anyway, guys, remember to like, favorite, and subscribe for more. I'm Chase Clover, signing off.